Are you my daddy? The grocery store was a madhouse on Christmas Eve. Sarah maneuvered her cart through the crowded aisles, 5-year-old Emma perched in the seat, swinging her light-up sneakers and humming Jingle Bells off-key. "Mommy, can we get the cookies with the reindeer on them?" Emma pointed to a display of festive treats. "We're making our own cookies tonight, remember?" Sarah smiled, though exhaustion tugged at her. Between her nursing shifts at the hospital and preparing for their modest Christmas celebration, she was running on fumes and caffeine. "But these have IY sparkles. Our homemade ones will have even more sparkles, I promise." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her humming. Sarah checked her list. Milk, butter, eggs, the ingredients for tomorrow's dinner. It would just be the two of them again this year, like always. Her parents had retired to Florida 3 years ago, and while they'd offered to fly her and Emma down, Sarah couldn't afford to take time off work. The hospital was always short-staffed during the holidays. She turned the corner into the dairy section and her heart stopped. There, reaching for a carton of eggnog, was Michael Chen. 6 years. It had been 6 years since she'd last seen him, standing in the doorway of their apartment with a duffel bag over his shoulder and tears in his eyes. 6 years since he'd gotten the call about his mother's stroke in Seattle and made the agonizing decision to move across the country to care for her. 6 years since he'd asked her to come with him, and she'd said she couldn't. Not when she was 1 semester away from finishing nursing school. Not when she'd already invested so much. They'd tried long distance for 2 months. Then Sarah found out she was pregnant. She'd called him 3 times that day, fingers shaking as she held the positive test. He hadn't answered. When he finally called back that night, his voice had been hollow, exhausted. His mother had taken a turn for the worse. He was sleeping at the hospital. He was drowning in medical bills and decisions and grief. Sarah had listened to him break down over the phone, and she'd made a choice. She told him she'd been calling about something that didn't matter anymore. She told him to focus on his mother. She told him she was fine. She'd convinced herself it was the right thing to do. He had enough to carry without adding an unplanned pregnancy to his burden. She'd manage on her own. She was strong. She'd figure it out. And she had. Emma was born 7 months later, healthy and perfect. Sarah had graduated, gotten her RN license, found a good job. Her parents had helped when they could. She'd built a life, a good life, for her daughter. But now Michael Chen was standing 15 feet away from her in the dairy section of a price chopper, and the world tilted on its axis. He looked the same but different. His hair was shorter, touched with a bit of gray at the temples that hadn't been there before. He'd always been lean, but now he looked stronger, like he'd been working out. He wore a dark green sweater and jeans, and Sarah's traitorous heart stuttered at how familiar and foreign he looked all at once. She should turn around. She should leave. She should... "Mommy, you stopped moving." Emma's voice cut through her paralysis. The sound made Michael look up. Their eyes met across the refrigerated section, and Sarah watched shock ripple across his face, his mouth opened slightly. The eggnog carton hung forgotten in his hand. "Sarah?" His voice was exactly the same, warm and a little rough, like he'd just woken up. It used to be her favorite sound in the world. "Hi, Michael." Her own voice came out steadier than she felt. He set down the eggnog and took a step toward her, then seemed to catch himself. Wow. I didn't know you still lived here. I thought maybe you'd moved or..." He trailed off, his gaze flickering to Emma with polite curiosity before returning to Sarah's face. "How are you?" "I'm good. Great, actually. I'm working at St. Mary's now, in the NICU. That's amazing. You always wanted that." His smile was genuine if tentative. "I'm happy for you." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mommy, who's that?" Sarah's throat tightened. This was the moment she'd both dreaded and fantasized about for 5 years. In her imagination, it happened 1,000 different ways. She'd rehearsed speeches, planned explanations, envisioned scenarios where she was composed and in control. She'd never imagined it would happen in a grocery store on Christmas Eve with her daughter staring up at her expectantly. "Emma, this is an old friend of Mommy's, Michael." Sarah's voice wavered on his name. Michael crouched down to Emma's eye level, and Sarah's heart cracked at the gesture, so quintessentially him, always making himself smaller for children. "Hi, Emma. That's a very pretty name. Thank you. I'm 5. Emma held up her hand with all fingers splayed. "And I can spell my name, Emma. That's very impressive. Michael's voice had gone soft in that way it always did when he was genuinely moved by something. Emma studied him with the unabashed curiosity of a child. She tilted her head, and Sarah saw the exact moment when something clicked in her daughter's mind. Some recognition in the shape of his eyes, maybe, or the curve of his smile. "You look like my mommy," Emma announced. Michael glanced up at Sarah, confused. "Well, your mommy is very pretty, so I'll take that as a compliment." "No, I mean," Emma squinted at him. "You have the same nose, and the same—" She pointed to her own eyebrows, then at Michael's, then at Sarah's. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Michael stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. She watched as he really looked at her daughter for the first time, taking in the dark hair that was neither straight like Sarah's nor quite as wavy as his own, the almond-shaped brown eyes, the dimple in her left cheek when she smiled. His face went pale. "Sarah." It wasn't a question, it was barely a breath. "Michael, Mommy, why does he look like me?" Emma's voice was bright with curiosity, innocent of the bomb she was about to drop. She looked at Michael with wide, hopeful eyes. "Are you my daddy?" The words hung in the air between them like crystals suspended in ice. A woman pushing a cart swerved around them, muttering about people blocking the aisle. Christmas music played overhead, something cheerful and completely incongruous with the moment. Sarah could hear the blood rushing in her ears. Michael's eyes were locked on Emma's face. His voice broke. He looked at Sarah, and the betrayal in his eyes was worse than any anger could have been. "Sarah, can we not do this here?" Sarah's voice came out sharper than she intended. Emma's lower lip began to tremble, picking up on the sudden tension even if she didn't understand it. "Then where?" Michael's words were quiet, but edged with something dangerous. "When were you planning to do this, Sarah? Michael, please. Is she mine?" The question was simple, devastating, deserved. Sarah looked at her daughter, her brave, curious, beautiful daughter who was staring between them with growing confusion and fear. She looked at Michael, whose hands were shaking at his sides. "Yes," she whispered. The word seemed to physically hit him. He took a step back, then forward, then stopped like he didn't know what to do with his own body. His eyes were filling with tears. "I have a daughter." His voice cracked on the last word. "I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I didn't know." "Mommy?" Emma's voice was small now, frightened. "What's happening?" Sarah lifted Emma out of the cart and held her close. "It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. But I don't understand. Is he—" "Not here, Em. Please, not here." Michael ran both hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. When he looked at Sarah again, his expression had shifted from shock to something harder. "We need to talk, now. I know, my mom's place. You remember where it is?" Sarah nodded. She'd driven past it 100 times over the years, never stopping, always wondering. "Give me 30 minutes. I need to—" He looked at Emma again, and his expression crumbled. "I need to not have this conversation in a grocery store." "Okay." He grabbed his eggnog with shaking hands, abandoned his empty cart, and walked away without another word. Sarah watched him go, her own legs feeling like they might give out. "Mommy?" Emma's voice was muffled against her shoulder. "Why are you crying?" Sarah hadn't realized she was. She wiped at her face with one hand. "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're scared, honey." "Are you scared?" "Yeah, baby, I am." "Of that man?" "No. No, sweetheart. I'm scared I made a big mistake a long time ago, and I don't know how to fix it." Emma pulled back to look at her seriously. "When I make mistakes, you always say sorry is the best place to start." Sarah let out a watery laugh. "When did you get so smart?" "I was born smart. You tell me all the time." "I do, don't I?" Sarah kissed her forehead. "Come on. We need to finish shopping, and then go somewhere important." As she pushed the cart toward the checkout with Emma back in the seat, her daughter asked the question Sarah had been dreading. "Mommy, is that man really my daddy?" Sarah's hands tightened on the cart handle. "Yes, Em, he is. Why didn't I meet him before?" "Because Mommy made some choices that seemed right at the time, but maybe weren't, and now I need to try to explain that to both of you." "Does he know about me now?" "Yes, baby, he knows now." "Is he happy?" The hope in Emma's voice nearly broke Sarah completely. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But he's probably very confused and maybe a little angry with Mommy." "Oh." Emma was quiet for a moment. "I think he looked happy when he smiled at me, before he got sad." Sarah's vision blurred again. Yeah, He had nice eyes, like the kind that smile even when your mouth doesn't. Sarah pulled into Michael's mother's driveway exactly 30 minutes later. The house looked the same. A modest ranch with cream siding and black shutters, though someone had added a ramp to the front porch. The Christmas decorations were tasteful, white lights along the roofline, and a simple wreath on the door. Michael's car was already there. "Is this where my daddy lives?" Emma asked from her car seat. The words "my daddy" from Emma's lips felt surreal. "This is where his mother lives. Your grandmother." "I have a grandmother?" Emma's eyes went wide. "On this side? I know I have grandma and grandpa in Florida, but another one?" "Yes, baby, her name is Hui. Does she know about me?" "No, Em, she doesn't." The front door opened before Sarah could unbuckle Emma. Michael stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of the house. He'd changed into a flannel shirt, and his hair was damp like he'd splashed water on his face. Their eyes met, and Sarah saw the uncertainty there matching her own fear. She lifted Emma out of the car and set her down, taking her hand. Together they walked up the path to the porch. "Hi," Sarah said inadequately. "Hi." Michael's gaze dropped to Emma, and his expression softened immediately. "Hi, Emma." "Hi," Emma said shyly, suddenly pressing herself against Sarah's leg. "Do you want to come inside? It's cold out here." They followed him into the living room. It was exactly as Sarah remembered. The same worn leather couch, the family photos on the mantel, though there were more now. The Christmas tree in the corner was decorated with ornaments that looked handmade, probably from Michael's childhood. "Is your mom here?" Sarah asked. "She's resting. She had therapy earlier and it wore her out." Michael gestured to the couch. "Please, sit." Sarah and Emma sat together. Michael took the armchair across from them, perched on the edge like he might bolt at any second. His eyes kept drifting to Emma, studying every detail. "Can I get you anything? Water? Hot chocolate for Emma?" "We're fine," Sarah said. Then, because she couldn't stand the small talk, "Michael, I'm so sorry." He held up a hand. I need to know everything, from the beginning." Sarah took a deep breath. "Emma, honey, can you do something for me? Can you take your tablet?" She pulled it from her purse. "And sit at the kitchen table? Just for a little while. I need to talk to Michael alone." "About me?" "Yes, baby. About you. But grown-up stuff that might be boring." Emma looked between them, then reluctantly took the tablet. "Okay, but not too long. I want to know about my daddy too. I promise, sweetie." When Emma was settled at the kitchen table with her headphones on, Sarah turned back to Michael. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I found out 2 months after you left," she began. "I was sick one morning and my roommate made me take a test. When it came back positive, I called you. 3 times. Michael's jaw tightened. "I remember. I was at the hospital with my mom. She'd just had a second stroke. I was trying to coordinate with doctors and figure out if we needed to move her to a different facility." He paused. "When I called you back that night, you said it wasn't important. You were falling apart, Michael. I could hear it in your voice. Your whole world was crumbling, and you were trying to hold it together." "I couldn't," her voice broke. "I couldn't add to that burden. So you decided to have a baby alone? To never tell me?" The anger was creeping back into his voice now, controlled but present. "I thought I was doing the right thing. You had enough to deal with. You didn't need my own child." Michael's voice rose slightly, then dropped again when he glanced toward the kitchen. "Sarah, you took that choice from me. You decided all by yourself that I couldn't handle being a father. That's not, what else would you call it?" He stood up, pacing to the window. "God, Sarah, 5 years. I've missed 5 years of her life. First words, first steps, first day of school. Michael, does she ask about me? Did you tell her I was dead or just that I didn't want her?" "I never said you didn't want her." Sarah stood too, her own anger flaring. "I told her that her daddy lived far away and that sometimes grown-ups have complicated situations. I told her you were a good person who would love her if he knew about her. If he knew." Michael laughed bitterly. "That's a hell of a caveat." They stood facing each other across the living room, years of hurt and missed chances swirling between them. "My mom died," Michael said suddenly, his voice going quiet. 8 months after I moved here. All that sacrifice, all that time, I got 8 months with her." "Michael, I'm so sorry. I stayed in Seattle anyway, got a job with an architecture firm, made a life. Started dating someone last year, nothing serious, but I thought maybe—" He shook his head. "And all this time I had a daughter growing up without me." "Why did you come back?" Sarah asked. "My firm is designing the new library downtown. I'm the lead architect. I'll be here for the next 18 months at least." He turned from the window to look at her. "I thought about looking you up. I almost did, so many times, but I figured you'd moved on. Found someone else. I didn't want to complicate your life. There hasn't been anyone else." The words hung between them. Michael's expression flickered with something. Surprise, pain, longing, she couldn't tell. "Mommy!" Emma's voice called from the kitchen. "Can I come back now? This video is done." Sarah looked at Michael. "That's up to him." Michael stared at the kitchen doorway for a long moment. Then he wiped his eyes and nodded. Yeah, she can come back." Emma bounded back into the living room and climbed onto the couch next to Sarah. She looked at Michael with open curiosity. "So you're definitely my daddy?" Michael's expression crumbled and rebuilt itself. "Yeah, Emma, I'm definitely your daddy. Why weren't you here before? Because I didn't know about you. If I had known, I would have been here every single day. I promise you that." Emma considered this. "Mommy says you lived far away. I do, in Seattle. But I'm here now for work. Are you going to stay?" The question was simple, direct, devastating. Michael looked at Sarah, then back at Emma. "I'm here for at least a year and a half, maybe longer. And Emma, even when I'm in Seattle, I want to be in your life. If that's okay with you and your mom, will you come to my school play? It's in January. I'm a snowflake." Michael's laugh was half a sob. "I would love to come to your school play. And my birthday? It's in February. I'll be 6. Emma—" Sarah started, but Michael interrupted when in February 14th, Emma said proudly, "Valentine's Day. Mommy says I'm her Valentine baby." Michael's eyes found Sarah's. She saw him doing the math, counting back 9 months from February to the last time they'd been together in May. She watched the realization hit him. "Valentine's Day," he repeated softly. "I'll definitely be there for your birthday, Emma. With presents?" "Emma!" Sarah scolded, but Michael was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since the grocery store. "With presents," he confirmed. They talked for another hour. Emma told Michael about kindergarten, her best friend Sophia, her favorite color purple, and her cat Mr. Whiskers. Michael listened to every word like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. He asked questions and laughed at her stories and looked at Sarah occasionally with an expression that held too many emotions to name. When Emma started yawning, Sarah knew it was time to go. "We should head home. Someone needs to get to bed before Santa comes." "Wait," Michael said. He disappeared down the hallway and returned with a wrapped box. "I was supposed to donate this to the toy drive at my office, but—" He handed it to Emma. "Merry Christmas, Emma." "But you didn't know about me," Emma said, confused. "No, but I do now, and I want you to have this." Emma looked at Sarah, who nodded permission. She tore into the wrapping paper to reveal a book, The Little Prince. "My dad used to read this to me," Michael said softly. "It's about love and responsibility and not giving up on what matters. I thought, maybe your mom could read it to you." Emma hugged the book to her chest. "Thank you, Daddy." The word, so natural from her lips, like she'd been waiting her whole life to say it, made Michael's eyes shine with tears again. At the door, Michael stopped them. "Sarah, can we talk? Tomorrow, after Emma's asleep? There's a lot we need to figure out." Yes, of course. "And Emma?" Michael crouched down one more time. "I'm really, really happy I met you today." "Me too," Emma said seriously, even though Mommy was scared. "I was scared too," Michael admitted. "The best things in life are usually a little scary." In the car on the way home, Emma chattered excitedly about meeting her daddy, about the book, about whether he'd really come to her birthday. Sarah listened with half her attention, the other half replaying the last 2 hours trying to process what had just happened. "Mommy?" Emma said as they pulled into their apartment complex. "Yeah, baby? Is this the best Christmas ever?" Sarah thought about the fear and pain and anger, about Michael's hurt expression and the years she could never give back to either of them. But she also thought about Emma's joy, about the way Michael had looked at their daughter, about the possibility of healing. "I think it might be, Em. I think it might be." That night, after Emma was finally asleep, too excited to settle down easily, Sarah sat on her couch with a cup of tea and let herself cry. They were complicated tears, grief for what she'd taken from Michael and Emma, relief that the secret was finally out, fear about what came next, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Oh, thank you for tonight, for letting me meet her. We have a lot to work through, but Sarah, she's perfect. Thank you for giving me that." Ifki. Sarah typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, "If she asks about you every day, asked why you weren't here. I told her you would be if you could. I was wrong about so many things, but not about that. Not about you." The response came quickly. Want to be there, for everything. School plays and birthdays and bedtime stories and scraped knees, all of it. We'll figure out how. Tomorrow, Sarah sent. Tomorrow, he confirmed. Sarah set down her phone and walked to Emma's room. Her daughter was sprawled across the bed, the little prince clutched in her arms even in sleep. Sarah carefully extracted the book and set it on the nightstand, then brushed the hair from Emma's forehead. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her sleeping child. "I'm so sorry for the time I took from you. But I promise, baby girl, I'm going to do everything I can to make it right." Outside, snow began to fall, the first of the season. Sarah watched it through Emma's window, tiny white flakes catching the street light and sparkling like stars. Somewhere across town, Michael was probably still awake too, processing this impossible Christmas Eve. They had so much to navigate, custody arrangements and explanations to family, and 5 years of Emma's life to catch Michael up on. There would be hard conversations and legal paperwork, and the complicated work of rebuilding trust that had been shattered. But as Sarah stood in her daughter's doorway, watching her sleep, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 6 years. Hope that maybe, somehow, they could build something new from the broken pieces of what they'd lost. Tomorrow they would start figuring it out. Tomorrow there would be difficult conversations and complicated emotions. Tomorrow the real work would begin. But tonight, Christmas Eve, with snow falling and her daughter dreaming of the daddy she'd just met, tonight Sarah let herself believe in the possibility of new beginnings. After all, wasn't that what Christmas was all about?